Last episode, we built the exterior to my villager trading hall. And I gotta say, I think it turned out pretty good. But my love for this build will not change the fact that the interior is nowhere near complete. So today we're going to be completing the inside of this thing, and then we're going to be moving some villagers over here to get them bred up, and then we're going to move them over to the starter island. Now, this is going to end up being a very long and difficult process, so in order to make this whole thing easier on us, I'm going to start with one of the hardest parts, which is actually transferring the villagers from our temporary little village that we already have set up over to where we actually want them to be. But in order to do that, I need to clear out a little space for them and get rid of some of these trees. You know, no matter how hard I try, almost every single episode in this hardcore series has resulted in some kind of deforestation activity. I know chopping down copious amounts of trees is a canon event amongst all Minecraft players, but sometimes you can't help but feel bad. We need a tree farm or something. At least that way I don't have to look them in the eyes as I kill them. But I think this will be a good amount of space. We don't need this to be too elaborate. We just need a temporary villager storage room. So once again, in classic Minecraft fashion, I'm going to build them a dirt hut. And then I'm going to put them in it, and everything will be fine. I do need to make sure I light up the inside though. My plan here is to run a minecart track directly down to the water's edge. That way we can put the villagers in boats, transfer them by water, stick them in a minecart, and just send them right up the hill directly into their new dirt home, and hopefully this will be an easy process. What? Dude, get in the boat. There we go, one villager down. Now I just need to do that like 6 more times. Alright, we finally moved them all over to this little temporary area here, so now we can start taking down this minecart track. And I'm not even going to try to pretend that wasn't miserable. I really can't stand working with villagers. I love what they can do for me. Trade-wise, obviously, but dealing with them is just such a pain. But now that that's cleaned up, I'm going to head over to our little sheep farm area here, and I'm going to collect as much wool as possible, and I'm going to just make a bunch of beds so we can start breeding these guys to get a bunch more villagers. I also grabbed a bunch of bread from our wheat farm to feed them, so hopefully this goes well. Oh my god, wait a minute, there's a cat. We gotta take a break here. Side quest unlocked. Hold on, we need some fish. You see, one of my channel members, Senthai, has been begging me now for a while to get a cat in the world, so I'm gonna try to get that done real quick for him. Plus, it would just be nice to have extra pets around. Yes, we got him, and he's licking his paws. I believe you all wanted me to get one of the calico cats, but this is the best I can do right now. But while we take him home, I wanted to take this opportunity to also shout out all my other channel members and Patreon members. You guys have really been coming in clutch over the past couple of months supporting the channel, and I'm very, very grateful for everything you do for me. I always say that you're the lifeblood of this channel, and that couldn't be more true, so once again, thank you for all your support. But there we go, by popular request, we will be naming the cat Meryl. And so now we have Arkeen the Dillo, Meryl the cat, Delgado the dog. Oh, and I forgot to mention I got a second dog. His name is Gustavo. Say hello, Gustavo.
Bark.
But anyways, now that we're back on track, I want to come into the trading hall here and break through the floor. And we're actually going to start lighting up the basement areas of this place. And that's because not only do I want to expand the interior upwards and have multiple levels going up, but I also want to have multiple levels going down as well. And I'm going to be using a really cool mod called Lightly to help show me where mobs are actually able to spawn, so that way I can place torches down and mob proof the entire area. This mod was brought to my attention in one of my live streams a few weeks ago by one of my subscribers, and I have to say, ever since I installed it, I've never gone back. And I do have plans to mob proof the entire starter island later in the video, so This will definitely be coming in handy. But now that we can actually see what we're doing and aren't going to get killed by any surprise creepers, I'm going to start installing the different floors. And I think I'm going to install 2 new ones so that way the base is split into 3 main segments. And in order to do this, again, I want the floor to be really shiny and look like it's made out of marble like the rest of the build, so we're just going to be using straight up calcite. Now that the floors are in place, it's time to start cleaning up the interior walls. So I'm just going to start by getting rid of some of this extra cobble deep slate that we don't really need. And I'm also going to be opening up the base in a few more areas just to give it more of that destroyed look, and so we can actually be able to see into the library from outside of the structure itself. And that actually gives us a lot more natural light too, which is pretty cool. And it would probably be a good idea if in the parts of this base where the walls aren't ruined, we built them up with calcite similar to how we did in the top section of this build. That way everything is cohesive and it makes it look like it was once one big calcite structure that was just burned and tore apart in a few different places. Alright, so all the walls are finally in place, and don't worry, I'll be doing some texturing on them later in the video to make it all blend seamlessly with the different colors. But for right now, we have all these different floors, but we actually have no way to get between them. So the next thing on our to-do list is to actually build a staircase. And so I'm going to be taking some more calcite, and I'm going to be building out a pretty thick couple of levels of steps here, but we're only going to be taking the calcite about halfway down. And the reason for this is because, again, I want it to look like this is a giant broken staircase, like most of it has been just completely eviscerated. And so we're only going to have the calcite go so far, and then we're actually going to start coming in with some spruce slabs to hopefully make it look like the new villagers that discovered this place came in and did their very best to repair the staircase in the ways that they knew how. There we go, a few support pillars later, and although it looks a little wonky, it definitely gets the idea across and I'm happy with it. Now it's time we move on to yet another staircase here, this time going all the way down to the bottommost layer. And we're going to have this one be entirely made out of wood, just to make it look like at this point the original staircase is completely gone and they had to build something entirely new in order to reach this area. So we're going to be using the same amalgamation of spruce slabs and spruce trapdoors that we used on the upper layer, and we're just going to bring that same design right down here, and of course we will add in some support pillars as well. Decent? With that, it is now time to come into the main room of the villager trading hall, and we're going to begin working on the staircase for in here. Only this time, this one is going to be much bigger, and I'm going to try to design it kind of around like a half moon shape, where there's a staircase leading up on the right and a staircase leading up on the left. And we're going to have this repeated pattern go all the way up to the top of the build, adding in a couple different layers of floors as well. Now, I plan to fill this place with librarian villagers, so this gives us the opportunity to kind of separate them depending on which trades they have, and we can give them their own little spaces. Now with that done and out of the way, I do want to take a quick minute to head outside and collect some wheat, because we are going to be needing to create a bunch of bread to breed up these villagers, so it's important that we stock up. Alright, coming back to the interior here, I think this place looks really cool with all these different walkways hanging about the area. And now it's time to really get into the nitty-gritty of this project, which is basically setting up all of the details on the interior of this build. And let me tell you guys, we definitely have our work cut out for us. So I'm going to start with one of the simplest parts and something that's going to help us section off this build a little bit more so we can kind of compartmentalize and get this done quicker, and that's placing in some more pillars. Now I want all of these pillars to kind of line up with each other on all the different layers, and we are going to have them on every single layer except for the very top one, because I have a little bit of a surprise for that coming up. And just like that, all of our pillars are in place and it's already looking a lot cooler. I'm getting very excited about this. Oh, come on, you gotta be kidding. I think maybe I just need to take a moment here to stop and smell the roses. Alright, I'm bored. How now, brown cows? These are sheep, and they're red. I honestly don't care what animal they are as long as they cure me of my boredom. Anyways, all of that to say, I want to make the entrance to this place feel a little bit more grand, so I'm going to be taking some of our newly obtained red carpet and red wool. I'm going to try to be adding some kind of carpet along the main entrance floor here. Now this is also where I'm going to want our main villager trader to be, of course that being our mending trader. So I'm going to try to figure out a way to kind of build up another semicircle kind of shape of bookshelves around the center of the place here. That way we can have him hanging out with what is also going to be an enchantment table right in the middle of the room. And I seem to have run out of bookshelves, so don't tell anybody, but we're going to steal some from the little enchantment room we have under our starter base for right now. But don't worry, at some point today, we'll come back in here and fill this in. And yes, I'm aware I'm mining bookshelves with a pickaxe, okay? I don't have soul touch on my axe. That's a problem I need to fix, but I'm not doing that right now. But anyways, it is now time to start moving these villagers over to the inside of the trading hall, or at least a few of them. I want to get 1 to 2 in there to kind of get a feel for where they're all going to be and how the place is going to look when it's done. But now here comes the fun part, attempting to actually get these guys into their proper locations. Stop moving, please. Alright, so I've finally got these pieces of trash where they belong. This guy in the center here, our mending villager, has got quite the setup. What's great about this is that we have honey blocks in the ground underneath some carpets here, so he can't really escape because he won't be able to jump, and the lecterns with trapdoors over them are too high for him to reach. Ourselves, we can actually still reach the enchantment table in the center, which is a level 30 enchantment station, so this is where we can do all of that now. And so that this guy will refresh his trades quicker, he gets a couple of beds in the floor too. Now, unfortunately, I am completely out of bookshelves once again. So what I need to do is fly over to our rocket farm real quick, and I need to steal some of the backed up sugarcane that's coming from the sugarcane portion of the farm. And we're going to take that and honestly just start lining the shoreline with some sugarcane. And the reason why I'm not building an auto farm and just leaving it run overnight is because I actually have a pretty good idea for what I want to do for a sugarcane farm, so I don't want to have to build two, so we're just going to skip it and do this part manually. Now while we wait for all of that sugarcane to grow, since it'll still be loaded while we're working in the villager trading hall, I figured it would be a good idea to throw some railings on these staircases instead of just having them open and exposed. And so I'm going to use spruce trapdoors and oak trapdoors for the railing here, and we're going to take this design all the way up to the top of the build. Another little detail I want to add in while we're doing this is actually replace the outer rim of planks on each level with some backwards facing chiseled bookshelves. I'm hoping this will kind of get the look of some kind of trim that has been run along every level here. And yeah, I can tell that's already looking better. I think another little cool thing that we could add is also just a bunch of table and chairs lined up across the bottom of the build here to make it look like the students have kind of rearranged all the furniture on the bottom floor to match their needs wherever they tend to be sitting for that day. And so I'm just going to be using a combination of some dark oak stairs and slabs to create the tables, and then using some regular spruce slabs and spruce trapdoors to create the chairs. Now while we were hard at work on the interior of the build, we had our sugarcane growing, but one thing we didn't have growing was cows. And like I said, in this video, I'm going to end up using close to 3,000 bookshelves, so we really need a lot of leather. But of course, while I was working on getting all of this leather, I saw it start to compile in my inventory, and of course I got distracted, making a couple more bookshelves and getting our first little villager trading station set up here on the bottom of the build, off to the right hand side of our mending villager. And I have to say, this little station turned out really cute and cozy. And just like that, like a moth to a flame, I got distracted once again and caught up in the little details. And And I actually ended up firing up a live stream and using the help of some of my subscribers to better design this staircase here. Now, I wanted to make it look like there was some kind of worn down greenish carpet. I don't know why, but a very large percentage of libraries, at least where I live in America, have this really ugly dark green kind of carpeting or dark blue carpeting, these really weird colors. Anyways, I kind of wanted to incorporate a little bit of that here to just show some weathering and some time passage. So we all decided it would be best to use some green carpet in tandem with some moss carpet and some mossy cobblestone slabs to get this appearance across. This definitely looks a lot better. And I didn't even mean for it to turn out this way, but if you look at this thing from above, it kind of looks like a giant Eye of Ender, which is kind of cool. Now with the carpet in place, I'm finally ready to start preparing for some of these other little trading stations. So we're going to go ahead and get some redstone blocks together, and I'm also going to craft up some hoppers, and we will also be needing some dispensers, because I'm actually going to build a temporary and very small honey farm in the nether, which means it is also time to take down all of these beehives, scoop up the campfires, and remove this little calcite box that they've been chilling in for a while. Now, for those of you who have been around the channel since Minecraft Hardcore Season 1, you'll know that I actually used to have an absolutely massive honey farm, so I'm actually still very familiar with the design of these type of farms, which means I'll be able to bust this out pretty quickly. And there we go. That literally only took like 10 minutes, and now these guys should start producing honey for us. Now, the reason why we need so much honey is because I need more of those honey blocks to make sure the villagers can't get out of their trading stations, and we're going to need quite a few. But after waiting around for a couple of hours and collecting all the honey blocks we'll need, I decided it was time to finally start working on the other villager trading station that's going to be on the main floor. And I basically just copied the same design I had on the right side over here to the left side, just with some minor variations like adding in a ladder and making the carpet purple instead of red. You know, these little areas here are really helping this place come together. So with my newfound motivation to get this project done, I decided it was time to start finishing the decorations on the bottom layer. And I'm going to do that by adding in the remaining bookshelves, and I'm also going to be throwing down some chiseled bookshelves that are empty and some looms to give just more texturing and make it look like not all the books are properly in place. And I'm also going to be throwing in a bunch of light gray and dark gray carpets around the floor. You know, since the floor is made of marble and stone, I figured it gets pretty cold at night, so I think it would make sense if the villagers came in and threw carpets down to help keep their feet warm as they were walking around during the nighttime hours. But while I was working on this thing, I had another brilliant idea, and what I want to do is create a bunch of floating candles using some of the honeycomb we got. I really want to try to make the interior feel almost like something out of Harry Potter. So I think having a bunch of floating items everywhere would be really cool. I really wish there was a way for us to get some kind of floating or flying books in here. I mean, the only thing I can think of right now is putting books in invisible item frames, but I don't think that would look too good. So for now, we'll just stick to candles. Alright, I can't even lie, this looks pretty cool. I mean, this looks a lot cooler than I thought it was going to. I really cannot wait to see the rest of this place just filled up with these candles. But now it's time we start working our way up the different layers, installing all of the bookshelves, and making all the different villager trading stations. And while we do this, I figured now would be a good time to go over the comment of the day. And today's one is pretty short, but it is nonetheless important. But this one comes from Astro Ghoul, who says, "Bro, I love the building honestly, but I feel like you should create more stone type pathways with the calcite and add that for more history of the old civilization." So first of all, Astro, thank you for the comment, and second of all, yes, I absolutely do plan to add some more pathways to the world. In fact, all the different kingdoms that we end up building around here are all eventually going to be connected by some form of pathways. But you definitely bring up a really interesting point about adding calcite to those pathways, and I think that might actually be a pretty good idea. I feel like finding a gradient that would look well, you know, throwing calcite in with dirt and stuff will be pretty difficult, but if we can manage to get that done, I think it'll be something pretty unique and not something you see often in a lot of hardcore worlds. And I'm honestly looking forward to see how that might look when we're looking at it from the Zero's world map mod. Seeing all these white calcite pathways piercing through the terrain might actually be really cool. So once again, Astro, thank you for the comment, and I'll start thinking up some design ideas. But right now, guys, as cool as this library is looking, we have a bit of a problem. You see, I've only got the first 2 layers of books installed, and we have once again run out of bookshelves, which means I am going to head down below our trading hall here, and I'm just going to set up a temporary sugarcane farm by just installing rows and rows of dirt, and then we're going to do a few AFK sessions to let this thing grow out and collect all the paper we need. Never mind. I got distracted again. While I was waiting around for the sugarcane to grow, I came up with this really cool idea that I think I want to try out. I think it would be really cool if we made it look like these villagers were starting to try to map the stars and pay attention to different celestial events. So in order to get that across, I want to make it look like they have some kind of star map in the ceiling of the trading hall, and the only block I can think of that can get this done properly is Sculk, which means instead of playing it safe and doing nothing but relaxing and watching our sugarcane grow, I'm literally going to be risking my life, basically so I can put stars in the ceiling. Now, I do know there is a deep dark biome somewhere nearby, but if you couldn't already tell, I'm kind of starting to get lost in these caves here. Never mind. Not 2 seconds later and I find it, and all of a sudden, this is feeling like a really bad idea. If I end up dying to a warden today, I'm gonna be pissed. Yep, there we go. Immediately, mistake number 1. Okay. Yeah, okay. Nope. I need to just do my best to get as much Sculk as quickly as I don't know why I'm whispering. It's not like it can hear me. Oh my god, maybe you can. Move, 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 rocks, move. I can hear it coming. Wait, please. Hold on. It's sniffing. It can smell me. I haven't even seen the thing. I mean, I'm really in no immediate danger, but I'm just not risking it. I know we can still get one shot by that thing, so I'm playing it safe. Hopefully we got as much Sculk as we needed, but I'm not going back down there. Whew. Okay, let's get back to work. I mean, wow. This looks great. I knew it was going to look good, but just the way it pulsates with complementary shaders and it actually looks like there's like a map of the galaxy up there. This is perfect. But now with that very dangerous side quest out of the way, I'm going to be needing a bunch more bookshelves. So I'm just going to spend the next couple of hours AFKing and harvesting our sugarcane here, and then I'll probably end up having to round up some more cows to get the leather, and then hopefully we're going to be able to have enough bookshelves to complete the interior, or at least the top layer of the interior. We still have the bottom layers to do, remember that. With all the other bookshelves in place, it was time to start working on the top and final layer of the main section of the build. So I started with putting in some spruce pillars, followed by lining the ceiling with more chiseled bookshelves. I then came in and removed a bunch of the calcite and installed all the bookshelves, leaving a few new spaces in between for something we're going to be putting in just a few seconds. And then finally, the last thing I did up at the top here was add in a brand new railing. Now what I want to do in those 4 empty spaces that we left is build a couple of villager statues statues that kind of are based on Roman soldiers. And I'm going to be doing this by using red wool, red banners, diorite stairs and polished diorite slabs, a few trapdoors, and a black stained glass. Now, I am basing this previous civilization of villagers that built all of these calcite structures off of the Targaryens from Game of Thrones. So these guys were conquerors, and that's why we're going to be able to see their style of building all over this world. And so that's really why I'm including these statues here. These new villagers have left the statues preserved and dressed them up in garments to pay respect to their ancestors' warrior past. And there we go, the statues are done, and I've even added this little border around each of them. And I think they make the perfect little addition to this trading hall. I'm also going to just take a quick few minutes here to finish putting the rest of the floating candles around the build. That way we can mob-proof this place without needing to have lanterns or torches everywhere, and hopefully this will help to improve the atmosphere. And boy did it ever. I mean, look at this place, it feels so cool now. But for this next part of the build, we actually have a pretty long laundry list of items that we need to get, including green glazed terracotta, yellow concrete, red glazed terracotta, and yellow glazed terracotta, blue concrete, and blue glazed terracotta. We're also going to be needing some chains as well, and we're going to have to take a few stops into the nether to collect some more honey blocks. We're also going to need some glowstone as a light source, so I'm going to grab some blocks of that while we're here as well. Now, I've been collecting all these different blocks so that we can do what we talked about earlier, which is to build a model of the sun and of a couple different planets hanging from the ceiling. Yes. Oh my god, how cool does this look? I absolutely love it. Again, you know, it's a bit clunky and cartoonish, but I think it gets the point across and adds that little extra element to the build that I was looking for. But with that, the above section of the villager trading hall is done, and it's time to move on to the basement layers. Now, the first thing I want to do is extend a couple of these spruce pillars towards the ceiling. Now, we're not going to be having these anywhere because, again, we're going to try to make it look like the inside of this place has been ruined by a fire, so we will be leaving a few empty spots. And then the next thing to do would be to remove the interior calcite walls that I built earlier. Although it does suck to kind of go back on some of my previous work, I think one of the best parts about this build is that we actually have walls that are 2 blocks thick. That gives us the perfect opportunity to get an extra layer of space and install these bookshelves without worrying about exposing them to the outside or making the interior feel too small by bringing them inwards. Oh yeah, this place is gonna look sick when it's covered in bookshelves. Although I can't help but get the feeling we may need to pull out the sugarcane farm again. We're probably gonna run out of bookshelves. And of course I was right, we ended up having to build the sugarcane farm again and kill a bunch more cows. But I don't want you guys to have to watch that part of the process a third time, so for you I'm just gonna skip right to the good part, which is installing the remaining books. And by now I'm sure you've noticed the very visible weird splotches of color in the ceiling that are left over from what we did on the top layers. So what I'm going to do is take a bunch of slabs and some logs and install a kind of wooden ceiling across the entire place so that's not visible. Again, one of the perks of having such a massive structure is that I get to do multiple layers for the same thing. For example, I get to have a ceiling layer and a floor layer here, which is not something I often get to do. Most of the time when I'm building different floors, whatever the floor is on the top layer most likely ends up being the ceiling on the bottom layer, so it's nice to have a bit of a change. But coming back down to the ground layer here, I want to have this kind of round circular desk in the center of this room for a couple more librarian villagers to rent out books and show people where to go and things. We're also going to install a red carpet floor in here as well, and then we're going to install a bunch more tables and chairs surrounding the main desk. Just once again, so all of these student villagers and other librarian villagers have a place to read and study. And again, in order to keep their tootsies warm during cold nights, we're going to be installing some more light gray and dark gray carpets between the tables. Then we are going to kind of come to the outside ring here, and we're going to put another green carpet using moss and, well, green carpet, completely encompassing the rest of the tables and chairs. And now we're just going to do some more detailing by putting some flower pots all over the place, sticking a few lanterns here and there. We're also going to be using some mini chests from our mini blocks mod that we have installed. And of course, we're going to be putting in all of our floating candles down here as well. Now, I've also noticed that we kind of have this empty space off to the left here, and I think this would make for a really good like reading nook. So I'm going to try to section it off between two different layers, starting by installing a spruce floor, and then we're just going to add in some bookshelves on the bottom layer here, and we'll need a way to get to the top, so I'm going to put in a ladder on the back of one of these pillars. And of course we wouldn't want to fall off of this thing, so we're going to install a railing at the top using the same design we used in the rest of the base, a combination of oak trapdoors and spruce trapdoors. Then we'll just add in the rest of the bookshelves on the top. And then over to the right side, we're going to have the spruce wood kind of taper off. We're going to move from full blocks of spruce to spruce slabs to spruce trapdoors. And this is one of those areas where we're really going to be making it look like the place was burnt up, and maybe making it look like the wood has collapsed. So we'll start by getting a little example in here of what that might look like, but we're going to come back to finish that later. And taking a step back, I actually think that turned out pretty well. And since we've got all of our trapdoors out, I figured we might as well put the railing in for the staircase too. And since that little reading nook turned out so well, I think I'm actually going to try to do the same thing but on a much bigger scale over on the other section where all the other bookshelves are. And yeah, after installing a little example floor there, I think separating this build is actually going to look pretty good. It would also make sense considering the fact that there are also multiple levels of bookshelves on the other floors as well, so this should help it to look seamless. So now with that done, it's time to start making this place look like it's actually been scorched and burned. And I'm going to do that by incorporating a pretty unique gradient of blocks here that I've never used before. And so we're actually going to start with those rooted mud blocks, and then we're going to work our way towards stripped dark oak, and then maybe some dark oak planks in a few spots. And I think that actually creates a pretty nice transition over to the bookshelves. Now in the much darker places where the fire would have originated from, in there we're going to be including a bunch of regular mud and most likely some deep slate and cobbled deep slate to help us get that darker look that we're looking for. And now I'm just going to go around the entire build here, and any place where I see the cobbled deep slate or calcite is meeting directly up with the books, I'm going to throw in this gradient to hopefully make it all transition well. And with any luck, we'll stop having this weird visual separation between where the bookshelves are and the rest of the stone blocks are, and it'll all look like one big seamless build. And so there we go, guys. This layer is basically done, and I think it looks wonderful. I added in all those burn and scorch marks that I was talking about, and I even extended the bookshelves in some areas. And although it doesn't look perfect, I think this is a pretty good job for my first attempt at something like this. And it even looks good without shaders on, so I'm happy about that too. But now it's time to move down to the bottom and final layer of this build. And of course, we're going to begin by getting rid of the ugly ceiling and installing a fresh wood one. And for this, we'll be using the same design we used on our other ceiling. And I gotta be honest, installing these ceilings has been one of the most annoying things that I've done through this entire process. I'm surprised more people in the community don't often talk about how annoying it is to basically build above your head, pretty much building upside down. But with the roof complete, I'm going to start installing some more bookshelves in a few different places, as well as under the staircase leading down to the bottom here. Now this is obviously the most messed up part of the trading hall, or rather it's the place that received the most damage. So this area is going to be pretty messy, and there's There's basically going to be no consistency whatsoever to where I'm placing these different shelves. Because not only do I want it to look like that the old shelves and stuff were destroyed, but I also wanted to make it look like the new villagers didn't really have anywhere to put the new shelves, so they kind of just threw them down wherever they could. And I'm also going to install a big red carpet in the middle of the floor again. And I am going to leave this place pretty empty because this is where we are actually going to do our villager breeding. I kind of just need a big open room with a lot of space and not a lot of things in it. So we have room to throw down temporary beds every time we need. And then maybe when we upgrade this world to the Happy Ghast update, we could just pull them up to one of the windows down here, load the villagers into the boats, and fly them over to the main island. But there we go. After adding in some more bookshelves and some candles, I think this will be good enough. Now at this point in the video, I've been working on this project for the better part of 2 weeks now. And what we're about to do next, I have been dreading since the beginning of this process. And so what we have to do now is completely mob-proof the entire starter island, because we're going to begin the process of transporting all the villagers over here. So we need to make sure that they'll be completely safe and there's not a single block on this entire island for hostile mobs to spawn. Because if we leave one stone unturned, it will spell for absolute disaster. We will have a massive zombie outbreak and we will burn through all of our weakness potions and golden apples like there's no tomorrow, and I really don't want that to happen. And through this process, glow lichen is really going to be our best friend. It's a really subtle light source that we can blend into a lot of the blocks we have on the island, so it'll help with mob proofing everything, but it won't stand out as bad as lanterns or torches will. But without further ado, let's begin lighting up the island. Alright, so after a good 3 hours of lighting up the island, we are finally done. The only thing that's left that needs mob-proofed is the main bridge heading over to the trading hall, so I'm going to light that up real quick. But then we are on to the final and probably most tedious part of this process, more so than even lighting up the island, and that's breeding up all the villagers and transferring them to the island and then spreading them out in a natural feeling way. So I think we're going to start with the most obvious choice here, which is taking all of our librarian villagers and putting them in the actual trading hall. And I guess now that I'm thinking about it, this really isn't much of a trading hall, is it? Considering most of the different variants of villagers will be on the actual starter island, whereas we'll most likely only have librarian villagers in the hall itself, but I'm not changing the name. But after a few more hours of work transporting these villagers who apparently learned all of their escape lessons from Houdini, we have finally filled up the villager trading hall with all our librarians. Now it is important to note that I did leave a few of these trading spaces open, and I didn't fill them with villagers because I really want to take some time to really consider which enchantments we want to actually add to this place. I've already got a mending villager, a silk touch villager, an efficiency villager, and unbreaking villager. Basically all the trades we would need to make a full new set of tools if somehow we ever lost our current set. But I'm still not sure what other trades I want to include yet, so again, we're just going to take a little bit more time to figure that out. And so now it's time to grab a bunch of bread and start breeding the rest of the villagers so we can fill the starter island. Now getting these villagers in their respective areas is actually going to be pretty complicated because there's a lot of really diverse and complex complex terrain that we're going to have to walk them through. So I'm going to try to ease myself into this process by starting with one of the simpler places that I need to take them to, which is the farming district. We're going to be starting with our farming villagers. And so I'm going to do my best to just block in a pathway all the way to the farmstead using just a bunch of diorite as barrier blocks. And this will hopefully help direct the villagers to where they need to go. And then the only other thing we really should have to do is place down their job block every couple of blocks, which in this case will be a composter. And they should get attracted to it and kind of just follow the general path of the diorite and go right to where they're supposed to be. Although again, this is Minecraft villagers we're talking about. This is all theoretical, and most likely they will end up escaping more than once, and we will go on a wild goose chase for a number of hours. But so far, this actually seems to be working, so I'm going to try to be as optimistic as possible. But there we go. The farming villagers are in place. Now, these guys really seem to have a knack for trampling over their own crops whenever they stand on top of their composters and then jump down. So that's a problem we're going to have to solve, but we'll save that for later. At least we got them where they belong. And so now we're going to head back up to our temporary trading dirt box, and we're going to take a couple of these nameless, jobless, unemployed villagers. A little bit of self-reflection there in that statement. And the next section we're going to work on is actually the mining district. We're going to be adding a bunch of weaponsmiths or toolsmiths and mason villagers, just doing our very best to make this feel like an active work area. But because this was such a complicated process, I made the decision to fire up a live stream and do this live on my channel with the help of some of my viewers, and we managed to successfully fill the island with all the villagers we could ever want. Now obviously there's not a villager for every single house in the area because I wanted to avoid lag for those of you who get the world download, which by the way, just as I said, a new version of the world download is as of today available over on my Patreon page for diamond tier Patreon members. But we filled up our fishing district with fletchers and fishermen, we added some villagers into the barracks and the main town, and we went as far as to even add some cleric villagers to the entertainment district. And this was definitely a difficult and tedious process. We seem to have all... Okay, so we're gonna need to put up some fences because this isn't working. Why? So thank you to everybody who showed up. And the best part about all of this is that the villagers do seem to be intermingling. I mean, they are going out of their way to leave their respective areas and interact with each other. And then when nighttime comes, they seem to go back to where their beds and workstations are. Like, I found some Fletcher and fisherman villagers as far up as the farming district, which is really cool to see. But that is going to do it for today's episode. I hope you guys have enjoyed. And not only are we done with today's episode, but we are officially done with the starter island. So not only do I hope you've enjoyed this video, but I hope you've enjoyed this entire series thus far. And if you've watched this far into the series, chances are you're enjoying what you're seeing. So if it wouldn't be too much to ask, I'd like to ask you to subscribe to the channel. I have a lot of really big plans for the future, and I'm super excited to expand this world outside of this one island. But that's going to do it for me today, and I've got to get going because I've got an iron farm to build.